Wow, this is a turn up, isn't it? No one saw this coming, did they? The United Nations says the world will definitely now pass the 1.5 degrees Celsius warming limit that our global leaders set out in the Paris Accord in 2015. I mean, imagine my surprise as I leaf through the pages of the... What are you doing? I'm giving the ladies and gentlemen a review of the latest IPCC climate report.
Yeah. Well, I think I can take it from here, thanks.
But I've only just got stuck.
Out.
Fascist oppressor.
Oh, shut up. Close the door.
Oh yeah, close the door after the horse has bolted. Very appropriate.
IPCC 6th assessment report just came out this week. Everything's terrible apart from the bits that aren't terrible. There's nothing we can do apart from all the things we can do, and we're all screwed unless we do all the things that make sure we're not screwed. And at the risk of being sued by Seth Meyers, for more on this, it's time for a closer look. Hello and welcome to Just Have a Think. If you've been a viewer of this channel since it first started, you'll know that I've produced explainer videos for every Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, publication ever since the slightly earth-shattering SR15 special report came out back in 2018. This latest offering is the last chapter of what the IPCC call their 6th assessment cycle, and it represents the culmination of 8 years of work. We're not due to hear from them again till the 7th assessment cycle starts taking shape towards the end of this decade. So this is it, the official line in the sand, if you like. And by the way, everything that goes into these reports is scrutinised, debated and sanitised ad nauseum by scientific, political and legal representatives from each one of the 195 countries that signed up to the Paris Agreement, until a sort of lowest common denominator consensus version is eventually agreed upon. So the stuff in here is, shall we say, slightly more diplomatically phrased than some climate scientists would have preferred. So what startling revelations does it have for us then? Well, as Che Guevara's poor relation there eloquently pointed out a moment ago, in this report the IPCC gets as close as it ever has done to conceding that the world will almost certainly now sail past the crucial 1.5 degrees Celsius temperature increase limit set out in Paris in 2015. If you'll allow me to use the now appallingly hackneyed and overused cliche of comparing our global civilization to one of those massive container ships that take about 3 miles to change direction, and if we place a little paper cutout of one of those container ships onto the emissions projection chart from this report in that slightly patronising way that we YouTubers like to do, then we can start to visualise how things are likely to pan out in the coming decades. This is the route the container ship has been following since the year 2000. There was a bit of a diversion around 2015 when the Paris Agreement was being put together and all our global leaders were trying very hard to look like they could actually be bothered. But we got over that aberration and quite quickly got back on track towards our final destination of full-on climate catastrophe. We actually took an even bigger detour during COVID that the IPCC doesn't show on their chart, but it looked a bit like this, and for a while there it threatened to stall the good ship humanity completely. But once the lockdowns were lifted, the insatiable human appetite for fossil fuels got us back on track for a second time. Now here's where we arrive at a bit of a divergence. You see, our wise and noble global leaders have already enshrined in law what are known as implemented policies, designed to gently steer the ship away from its current course towards this slightly gentler direction. The even better news is that each country that signed up to the Paris Agreement has also committed to what are known as nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, that could potentially, if every single one was implemented to the letter, could potentially really steer the ship away from danger in the coming decades. The trouble is, according to World Data Lab and the Brookings Institution, not many countries are really taking any notice of their own current legislation at all, and the trajectory of the ship, by which I mean the path we're currently on in the real world right now, looks like this, taking us up to about 70 billion tonnes of greenhouse gas emissions a year by 2050, which equates to the higher end of the IPCC wiggle room shading and an average global temperature increase of almost 3.5 degrees Celsius by the end of this century. But we're shooting for a maximum of only 1.5 degrees Celsius, right? Of course we are. And to achieve that, say the IPCC, we would need to immediately turn our freight ship on a sixpence and set it in this direction. Given where we're at now and what we've already caused, that sort of major direction change seems pretty unlikely, to say the least. As the IPCC puts it, it is unequivocal that human influence has warmed the atmosphere, ocean and land. Approximately 3.3 to 3.6 billion people live in contexts that are highly vulnerable to climate change. Increasing weather and climate extreme events have exposed millions of people to acute food insecurity and reduced water security, with the largest adverse impacts observed in many locations and/or communities in Africa, Asia, Central and South America, least developed countries, small islands and the Arctic, and globally for indigenous peoples, small-scale food producers and low-income households. In all regions, increases in extreme heat events have resulted in human mortality and morbidity. The occurrence of climate-related foodborne and waterborne diseases and the incidence of vector-borne diseases have increased. Every increment of global warming will intensify multiple and concurrent hazards. In 2060, assuming I survive that long, I will be 91 years old. According to this chart from the report, even in the best case so-called very low future emissions scenario, it's probably going to be extremely difficult for me, even here in the UK, to get through the summer months without air conditioning. But if we stay on our current trajectory, then within my lifetime, I will witness a world that could be pushing towards 3 degrees Celsius warmer than the one I was born into. And frankly, if that happens, then old buggers like me and billions of other people around the world who are vulnerable for one reason or another will probably have no chance by then. What the hell? See, we're doomed. Read the t-shirt. Doomed. No. Get out. Oh. There are some positives in the IPCC findings. They make the perfectly valid point that, in their words, policies have enhanced efficiency, reduced rates of deforestation, and accelerated technology deployment, leading to avoided and in some cases reduced or removed emissions. Multiple lines of evidence suggest that mitigation policies have led to several billion tonnes of avoided global emissions each year. So, apparently, could be worse. We are turning a corner, say the IPCC. There's a very definite shift towards public acceptance of the need for rapid decarbonisation, and actually the document chimes with much of the content on sustainable technology that we often look at on this channel. The report highlights the fact that between 2010 and 2019, the cost of wind energy dropped by 55%, and the cost of both solar power and battery energy storage dropped by 85%. The adoption of electric vehicles continues to accelerate at pace, with purchase costs rapidly approaching parity with internal combustion engine vehicles. And in the words of the IPCC, this has a large potential to reduce land-based transport greenhouse gas emissions on a life cycle basis. The future is very definitely electric, despite what our friends in the fossil fuel industry would have us believe. And the IPCC makes it absolutely clear that even if we have been screwing things up for the last 4 decades, since experts like James Hansen were literally spelling out the dangers we faced almost in words of one syllable to glassy-eyed representatives in the US Congress.
The evidence that the Earth is warming by an amount which is too large to be a chance fluctuation represents a very strong case, in my opinion, that the greenhouse effect has been detected and it is changing our climate now.
And even if, as a result, we are now careering headlong past 1.5 degrees of warming, that's very definitely not a reason to give up and stick our heads in the sand. In fact, it's precisely the reason why every single thing that every single human being can do now, however large or small, either as individuals or as communities or as business leaders or local councillors or as global political leaders, can and must be done. The report says this: deep, rapid and sustained reductions in greenhouse gas emissions would lead to a discernible slowdown in global warming within around 2 decades, and also to discernible changes in atmospheric composition within a few years. So if I can be presumptuous enough to paraphrase the great and the good of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, it's time to get off the pot and start doing some useful stuff. Or perhaps I should leave you with the undeniable wisdom of H. Brian Griffin.
Well, Peter, you've only got a couple of hours left. If you're going to pull a party out of your ass, you might want to stand up.
If you live in the UK and you're watching this video prior to April the 21st, 2023, then one way you can stand up is to go along to an event called The Big One, being organised by Extinction Rebellion and supported by Greenpeace, Friends of the Earth and several UK unions. And don't panic, it's not another Occupy London stunt or a let's all glue ourselves to roads and buildings exercise. It's simply a mass demonstration of hopefully well over 100,000 citizens outside Parliament to show their strength of opinion on the urgency of climate action. Now, I'm not a member of XR and I've never been engaged as any kind of advocate for their organisation, but I just think this event is one that every concerned citizen in Britain should attend if they possibly can. Anyway, that's it for this very brief summary of what the IPCC says our future holds. But if you're a real masochist and you want to delve even further into this report, then you can do just that over at my Patreon page, where I'll be posting a series of deeper dive videos focused on the detail of each section of the document over the course of the next 2 or 3 weeks. I've also left a link to the IPCC Summary for Policymakers document in the description section of this video, so if you don't want to indulge in my interpretations, then you can simply read the full report for yourself. And if you want to ensure you don't miss the next video here on YouTube, and you're on a PC, tablet or smartphone, then the best way to do that is by subscribing to the channel. It doesn't cost you a penny to subscribe, but it's an incredibly effective way to support the work we do here at Just Have a Think. It's dead easy to do. You either click on that icon there, or open YouTube's little hidden drop-down box and click on the subscribe all option. I know this one's been a very difficult subject to listen to, so as always, thanks very much for watching. Stay positive, start stalking your elected representatives, have a great week if you can, and remember to just have a think. See you next week.